Okay, looks like we're starting to get everybody on. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Builder Partnerships Webinar Wednesday. Today, our webinar is Sales Observation Ideas from a Veteran, Sales Keepers and Expendables. Our presenter today is Ross Robbins. We're very excited to have him. He's stepping out of retirement just for us today, just to help us learn a little bit more about our Sales Keepers and Expendables. I am going to invite Chuck, though, because Chuck and Ross have been working together for a long time, to talk about Ross here in just a minute. But before we get started, I want to cover a few housekeeping items. Although all of you are muted, and we might open it up at the end for live question and answers, but for the time being, we have a question and answer speech bubble down at the bottom of your screen. You can click on that throughout the entire presentation and ask questions throughout. We will be stopping periodically to see if there's any questions. So go ahead, as you have questions, go ahead and put them in there. If you need anything in particular, you can also reach me directly through the chat function that's also down at the bottom of your screen with the little chat speech bubble. We are recording the video, the webinar today, so if you need to go back to review any of the information, you can do that. I am going to invite Chuck at this time to go ahead and share a little bit about Ross, since they've been good friends for several years, and Ross has been with the home building industry for over 40 years. So Chuck, take it away.
Well, Ross and I have had a relationship for 35 of the 40 years. He has been a builder, a competitor. He had two successful home building companies here in the Denver market as a custom home builder. He has worked with me and the Shin Group as a consultant and an educator over the years. He also has functioned as a home builder coach, working in the area of sales and marketing. He's probably one of the best marketeers I've ever met. You know, I don't get involved in the sales side of this business that much. People say, no, Chuck, stay away from that. But Ross is absolutely fantastic. He really teaches. He's not a rah-rah guy. He teaches how to actually perform and sell and how to market. Probably one of the best marketeers. I used to hate going into a Parade of Homes program when Ross had a house in the Parade of Homes, because he'd have all the owners or the home buyers down at his house, and everybody else would be empty in the Parade of Homes. So anyway, pay a lot of attention to Ross. He is absolutely fantastic. So Ross, it's all yours.
Geez, I don't know what to say. It's tough. Thank you, Chuck. We have known each other a long time, and we've been doing an awful lot of things over the years. Well, folks, welcome to our webinar this morning. We're going to talk about keepers and expendables. Keepers are the salespeople that you do anything to retain because they're so valuable. And the expendables are the ones that when times get tough and you need to clear out a little dead wood, that's the ones that go. And if you want to be a keeper, I want to start off with what is happening in our industry, in our world right now, because that sets up a lot of the reasons that keepers get flustered and don't do things. This is a rough time we're in. We got the coronavirus. You talk about something completely out of the blue that nobody was prepared for. We had no idea how to accommodate this. We're all sort of feeling our way through this thing, and we don't know where it's going to go. I believe that it's going to be with us for at least another year, that we're going to have ramifications and difficulties that are going to carry us for at least another year, even with a real vaccination. If it's approved and we get it, it's still going to take a time for us to get settled back. And I'm not sure normal's ever going to return. I'm not sure I'd want to be an office building company right now, because offices may never come back. The second thing is we've got a lot of unrest with social issues and protests and things. And some people are emboldened by that. Some people are terrified by it. It is a psychological burden on people if you talk to them. People are thinking about it, and it weighs on them when they're making major life decisions. And buying a new home is a major life decision. We have all this election rhetoric, name calling, all this stuff back and forth. And people are sort of afraid to speak up and ask questions or be identified of one side or the other, because neither side likes to hear the other side's thoughts. And that's making people kind of reluctant to engage and participate. We have undulating unemployment numbers. And what do I mean by that? Well, when we first had the coronavirus hit, the layoffs were enormous. We had unprecedented unemployment. And then gradually jobs came back to some degree, except in the service industries, the hotel industry, the travel industry, the bars and restaurants. We're still discombobulated, and we will be for a long time. Well, one of the things we do know from history is that if you have uncertainty about your continued employment, you're not going to make a long-term financial decision. It's scary. Then we have, on the other hand, on the other side, we've got unbelievable interest rates. You can get a 30-year fixed mortgage below 3%. That's never happened in my entire career. And so people are both encouraged and discouraged, fearful and not fearful. So as new home sales professionals, we got to acknowledge the reality of the people's perception, the public and how they feel, the way it colors their thinking. We have to help them get to a comfort zone about this very unsettled time to be buying a home. And what we need is to be able to do things in rational fashion to proceed, to convince them to proceed, despite all the uncertainty. You know, one of the things that's interesting is over my career, I've noted that the best time to buy a house is almost always when things are the bleakest. That's when the best values are, best selection, the most service, the best quality of product, because people can produce at a much more relaxed pace, or they're not stressed and overloaded. Well, sales excellence comes in this time too, because this is the time when the winners, the keepers, get separated from the losers, the expendables. As I have been visiting sales centers over the years and helped builders develop their teams, they've been weeding out the expendables and giving the keepers some support to get to the better days. As I listen to others in the industry that I respect, especially those who have the pulse of the builders, like Chuck and Emma, I am struck that their observations are so parallel to mine. Now, what we know about these sales teams is that every sales team has a range of excellence, a range of productivity. And what separates these? Well, the best of the teams, the best sales team members, they make sales that get to closing. They don't have fallout. And they don't have to babysit their buyers. Their buyers are informed enough and expectations are properly set so that they don't have constant reinforcing of the sale or why they should continue the process. They make deals with solid margin for the builder. They don't rely on incentives. Now, almost every sales organization, every builder has some incentives in their arsenal, but the good guys don't use those very often, only when they absolutely have to, and only when as much as is needed to get the job done. The keepers forge a smooth relationship and process with the construction side of the business. They operate as partners, not as competitors, or not blaming each other. They generate happy homeowners all the way to move-in and beyond. And finally, they get ample referrals to more buyers. And the buyers that they get referrals to are like the buyers they've already sold. So they tend to have solid margins and smooth process and happy. And we have learned over the years that the most efficient way to acquire a customer is through the referral process. And the way you do that is have a good customer who gives you leads to other people who can become future customers. So, in the interest of making a clear distinction between expendables and keepers, I've looked at what distinguishes them. What makes the best and makes them keepers? What is it about keepers that makes them the best? Then I looked at the problems that make some people expendable. And from there, I cataloged the 7 most common problems we all seem to see, and I call them the 7 deadly sins. These are the ones that make you expendable. So what are these? What are the 7 deadly sins? Well, first is a lack of a career attitude. The second is a lack of discovery. The third is a lack of obtaining financial information. Fourth, a lack of a prepared presentation. Fifth, a reluctance to ask for the business. In other words, to ask for the order. Sixth, a failure to focus on the buyer and get distracted by other things. And last, a lack of realism about the quality of the prospects that are in your list of prospects, the list that you're working on. So let's take these one at a time. The most deadly, and therefore first on the list, is a lack of a career attitude. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, selling homes is not just an 8-hour-a-day job. It's not something you can show up like as if you were in an office working for somebody. You show up on time, you do your work during the 8 hours, you go home on time, you don't take too long lunch, and you're successful by doing what you're supposed to do during the time you're there. That's not how it works in new home sales if you're going to be successful. For those who succeed over a long period of time and prosper in all economic cycles, it is truly a career or a profession. Just as a doctor or a lawyer cannot make it to the top without continuous study, training, and practice, neither can a new top home salesperson. Showing up just in time to open the models, then leaving the job as soon as they're closed, makes you expendable. So does failing to present the builder's message by not understanding the message clearly or delivering it accurately. Working at your craft, taking training seriously, which in many cases may mean paying for it yourself if your builder cannot or will not. That's what makes you a keeper. If you're not willing to make that commitment, perhaps it's time to consider another career path before you become expendable. This is a commitment that is deep in your soul. Now, why do I say that it's a profession? Because if you do this right, it is a career. It will be lifelong, and you'll make as much money as net as a good doctor or lawyer will make. If you think of this as just something to do until the next opportunity comes along, then you're not dedicated to the craft, and you probably are not going to make a long-term success. And you might as well think about what you really want to do now. The leading problem with the sales process, and therefore second on the list, is a lack of discovery. Understanding the buyer's issues and concerns needs to happen before anything we present. Not only are you discovering the buyer's wants and needs, you're identifying whether this in fact is a real prospect that fits with you and your builder. You can't please everyone. And it's also important to be identifying who is not your buyer. So what gets in the way of needed discovery? In my experience, it's the fear of the unexpected and unknown. And that is because when we first meet somebody, we have no idea where this is going to go, whether that meeting is over a text or a web inquiry or however that person first contacts us. We have no idea where this adventure is going to go. And what we tend to do is we take control by talking our way forward. We do way too much talking in most situations, almost as though we are afraid of silence. Yet silence is our friend if we'll just be patient, because when we stop yakking, the prospect gets to open up. And sometimes it takes them a while to put the thought together into words. And just about the time they're ready to say something, we jump back in and steal the opportunity away from them. And I've watched it happen over and over. In fact, I've done it myself. Everything I'm talking about today are mistakes I made when I was on the sales floor myself. And I observed and learned. What we need to know is who we have in front of us. Who is this person I'm selling to? What's really important to them? You know, they'll tell us exactly what they need to move forward in the buying process. And conversely, what's holding them back, if we will just let them. We have to get ourselves out of the way. You know, if you haven't been videotaped during your sales process, working with a customer, it would be a real benefit to you to actually see what you are doing. It was a real eye-opener for me, and I watched a lot of videotapes and went through it with salespeople. If you don't think of a videotape as a critiquing tool, but rather as a learning tool, in other words, not a way to justify keeping you, but more a way for you to get better, to see yourself as others see you, as Bobby Burns once said. It's a real benefit. I had a woman that was a good salesperson, but she had a very distracting habit of always playing with she always had a little pin or a brooch or some kind of a thing on her blouse, and she would play with it, and she didn't know she was doing it, and it was so distracting. Can you imagine a customer is focusing on her playing on that, is not listening to the message, is not thinking about what they want? They're focused on this little irritating habit. And that's just a little tell that I use as an example. Remember, we were given 2 ears and 1 mouth, and they must be used in that proportion. One of the things that happens in most sales centers is it's about reversed. And if we're doing the talking, then we can't be gathering information. We're giving information rather than learning. Zig Ziglar, one of the oldest and best sales trainers ever back in the 60s and 70s, used to say, "Tellin' ain't sellin'." And there's a lot of truth in that. Again, like a doctor and a lawyer, we need to let the client tell us where it hurts before we propose a solution. And we have to get better at doing that. Keepers know this, and expendables don't. The third concern is the lack of obtaining financial information. We've been in the habit in the last 15 years or so of turning the prospects over to the lender and relying on them to get our prospects qualified. Before that, we didn't do that. Back in the 70s and 80s, we did a lot of the qualifying right in the sales center. It was a habit I picked up then and I kept with me, and it served me well. And I taught it to my people, even in recent times, because it has so many benefits. If we know how to qualify a buyer, and we do that directly, it saves us a lot of grief in the whole process. I don't know if any of you have recently been through a qualifying process for a new home. And as new home professionals, you might already know how to do that, but it is an extraordinarily stressful and irritating process. There is nothing pleasant about it. It is it's like going to the dentist for a root canal. It's just an unpleasant process, even in the best lenders, because the paperwork requirements and so on are enormous. And if you know how to do it directly, you can save yourself a lot of, or make yourself a lot of benefits. One is control. Lots of bad things happen when you're not there with your prospect and you don't know what to expect. If you've pre-qualified them in your own office, you kind of know where the bumps are going to be, and you can smooth those out ahead. Overcoming problems with value, appraisals, processing. If you know the financial situation of your buyer, you'll know what paperwork backup is going to be needed, and you can have them prepared for it. And you can gently tell them before the lender says that, in a confrontational and brutal way. And when it's submitted, you'll know it's submitted because you were there with them to do that. And there is always buyer remorse, which can arise from such a difficult process. If we're not in touch with them and we don't know where the little bump points might be, we're not prepared. So you can almost predict when a call is going to come when a buyer says, I'm not sure I want to do this anymore. This is just too much hassle. And finally, if we don't handle our prospect's ability to purchase, how can we close? How do you know if you really even have a buyer? You'd better at least have a basic qualifying done before you send them to a lender. Otherwise, how do you know you got a buyer? You're just going through the motions and having it all fall apart. That's crazy. The next big problem is a lack of a prepared presentation. If you haven't done good discovery and obtained the necessary financial information, like we did in the last 2 slides, what you do is you end up throwing all the stuff you know all over the prospect and hoping something will stick. This creates several problems along with it. You'll never know whether something resonates or not. You can't support remorse or handle objections. In fact, you can't even be sure why they will buy or why they are reluctant to buy. So what do I do with my people to get around these things? I recommend scripts. Scripts are concise, emotionally powered, prepared responses for the 10 or 12 most common issues you're going to encounter at your community. These are the same things that keep coming up over and over and over again. Sit down, write in your own words. I know people are reluctant about scripts, but here's the way that I teach scripts and why I think it's different. A script that's prepared by somebody else with some theoretical prospect in mind in some theoretical situation is useless. It's irritating. It doesn't fit. It's like a cheap suit that just doesn't fit on you. You're uncomfortable with it. You can't be your true self. But if you write it and it's for your situation and it's in your words and the way you speak and the way you think and you own it, then what you've got is an arrow in a quiver in your back. And all you do is you reach back, grab that arrow, put it in the bow and fire. You don't have to think about what you're going to say. You don't bumble along. You don't say anything you shouldn't say. You say everything you need to say, and it's quick, clear, and concise. And mostly, if you really take time preparing, you use power words that are emotional, that evoke a response. And if you're not thinking about what you're going to say, you can watch your prospect, and you can see the signals they're giving you, and you'll know where to go next. And all of that is the benefit of being prepared. If you haven't prepared your scripts and practiced them knowing that you're ready for anything, you're not prepared to sell. You become expendable. The next one hurts a lot. This one bothers me a lot. It's a reluctance to ask for the business. You know, across the country, there just seems to be an inability to do this. Somehow, people in sales centers, I refuse to call them salespeople. They're not selling. They're just there. They hope that their prospect will like what they're offering so much that they'll buy it. And you know what? That's not a valid strategy. If you give somebody a lot of reasons to buy, they still need a nudge. Even the most excited prospect needs some kind of a nudge to take action. If you think you're being pushy, how will you feel if they buy somebody else's home that is not as good as yours because some salesperson finally asked them to buy? And here's the interesting thing. In fact, if you've done your proper discovery and you presented a worthy solution, asking for the order is a very minor event. It's not really what we think of as closing in the old sense. In fact, one of my favorite ways to close was to simply say, shall we get the paperwork started? If you can think of a softer close than that, let me know what it is, and I'd be happy to share that too with everybody. But basically, all you're saying to people is a check question that says, are we there? And almost always when you say, shall we get the paperwork started? Yeah, let's do it. It's a non-event. Keepers close because they know that nobody gets paid. Not you, not the construction people, not the home builder, not the bank. Nobody gets paid until we have a closing. And only closings make paydays possible. Here's another one that bothers me. It's not critical, but it is as critical as these other things we've already talked about, but it's an irritant. And it's a failure to focus on the buyer. And what do I mean by that? Doing things that are urgent instead of important comes from that failure to focus on your buyer. This is really a time management issue. Today, we have so many competing things for our time. Our companies ask us to do a lot of admin things that are what I call housekeeping. And yes, they have to be done. But anything that takes time away from the contact with a real, live potential buyer is not nearly as productive as those things. Making appointments, being with buyers, actually going through the sales process, that's the most critical place we spend our time. Of course, you have to be on time and available during your advertised open hours. You got to keep your models looking good, your signage, your landscaping, what I call your store, has to be in good condition. You got to make sure your website, your collateral materials and supplies are in good shape. And of course, you have to understand all your forms and contracts and documents and specifications and fill out all the paperwork accurately, clearly, and on time. Yeah, you got to do all that. But if those things are getting a priority place over making a contact with a customer, and by the way, a customer contact can be a text, an email, a phone call, or face-to-face. And they are effective in that hierarchy, lowest to highest. There is no substitute for face-to-face. The next best is a phone call, especially a FaceTime type phone call where you can see somebody. The next most effective is a text or a email. But remember, there is no way for them to read nuance in a text or an email. So I like to keep those down to informational exchanges, particularly appointment times, directions, those kind of things, or progress reports on the house. Those can be conveyed in writing in a text or an email. But if you're going to try and generate emotion to take action to do something, it has to at least be a phone call, better a FaceTime type phone call where you can see them. And best of all is face-to-face. So that's the most important thing you can do. People are buying homes today despite the scary news. And they're buying because people are helping them feel comfortable about the risks that they're taking and mitigating that risk and making it feel comfortable and putting what a successful salesperson does, a keeper does, is put the emotional reward of the new home, makes it high enough that it's worth all the hassle that it takes to get there. Okay. You must spend as much of your time and energy face to face with prospects as possible. Otherwise, you can become expendable. And this is one of the hardest management things you're going to do with yourself, because the demands keep coming at you all the time. And my suggestion for you is to block out a period of time every day that is sacred for face-to-face contact or phone contact. And don't let anything interfere with that. Turn off your cell phone. Don't answer texts. Don't look at email for that block of time. At whatever time is that you are most of your highest energy point in your daily rhythm, that's when you should be face to face, and you should make appointments for those times. You should protect those and guard that time. And the last one is a lack of realism about prospect quality. You know, it's really interesting to me that with all the spook prospects out there, it's easy to think we have a prospect when we don't. If you haven't gotten close to your prospect to really understand whether they're ready, willing, and able to buy a home, you can waste a lot of time and energy on a possible deal. And what do I mean by ready, willing, and able? Well, ready means that they would like to buy in the immediate future, now. They want to buy now. Willing means that they want to buy this product at this place from you. And able means that they can buy it, that they have the means to proceed in a reasonable time frame. So if you got somebody that is absolutely excited about your new home, and they are excited about doing it now, but they have a house to sell, are they ready, willing, and able? No, they're not. And when they get a contract with a closing date and the contingencies are removed on the existing home, now you got a ready, willing, and able buyer. So you need to stay realistic about who you really have in your system. And my message to you is, if you have somebody in your system that is not truly ready to go, you're fooling yourself. I've had representatives I've talked to, on-site salespeople, talk about names on their prospect list and been told, oh, they're going to go to contract very soon. I come back for another visit, month, 6 weeks later, to go do another visit with the builder, and I find out that they're still on their prospect list because they hadn't sold their home, didn't get the job transfer, or yada, yada, yada. Don't fool yourself. Your prospect list has to be real, not hope. Hope is not a valid strategy. If you don't know with total certainty that they will buy, go back to discovery and qualifying until you do know when they're going to buy. And if you can't predict when and why they will buy, put themselves somewhere else in your system. That means that they're a B prospect or a C. It means you tickle them with emails, you send them invites to your open houses, or whatever it is that you do to keep, as I call, tickling them, to let them know that you're there and keeping in touch with them, and getting them to respond to you, so that when they do have a contract on their house, or they do have something that happens, you know about it right away, and you can move them up to a list and spend time with them face to face. But you need to spend the energy you have on the buyers that are ready to buy, with prospects that are high level. Okay? And keepers know which prospects will buy. They know. They're not guessing, they're not hoping, they're not thinking, they know. If you don't know, be realistic. Okay, so there you have the 7 deadly sins. How many of them are you committing? Ask yourself honestly, evaluate yourself candidly. Make sure that you are being really honest with yourself about what you're doing. And as I said, having yourself video shop is a really good way to do that. If you were your own corporation and your name was on a building, in other words, if I were the Robbins Corporation, the question I ask, would I hire myself as you now operate? Would I hire me as to do the job I'm doing? Would I actually spend the money and invest in me to do what I'm doing if I were in charge, if I were the boss? Invest in your future self today. Make sure that you're doing the stuff that you need to be a career or a profession. Any successful business owner has spent scarce resources to improve the company when it was really scary to do so. In fact, that is the test of almost any successful company, is that they did what they needed to do when it was hardest to do it. That's what makes great companies that last, and it's what makes keeper salespeople too. And if you're going to be a keeper, and I hope you are, then these are the things you need to be aware of and to do. So, Ms. Emma Jane, do we have any questions?
At this point, we don't have any questions, but that was a great presentation, Ross. Thank you so much. We're going to leave I can actually, I can allow everybody to talk if they'd want to, or you can raise your hand down. You can go ahead and click on raising your hand if you'd like to ask a question directly, or also click on the Q&A to ask a question directly to Ross. But in the meantime, I'll go over a few things to let you know that as a team, we're here for you to help you improve your business on the management of your business, to help you improve profitability through sales, management. Here's a list of our consulting team that can come out and help you in many different ways. We have Ed with operations, purchasing, value engineering, design centers, Rich Cashin, who just recently joined our team with technology review, assessment, and strategy. Rick Maurer, who's an expert on purchasing, contract negotiation, also value engineering, design centers, Mark system implementation assistance. And Jim Weigel, who's an expert with management, marketing, operations, finance, quality, valuation, effective ownership, and ownership transition. We have just implemented a new coaching and consulting services and packages that we can do to help you remotely or on site, so call for information on that. We have several services that we operate through Shin Builder Partnerships and our Shin Consulting. I just spoke to you a little bit about our training and our consulting. Some of our training options are obviously our webinars that we host every Wednesday, but we also offer classes through live seminars, which will hopefully be back in 2021, and also our online service, online classes. We have our rebate program, which is an excellent way for you to increase savings and earn a little bit of extra income through the rebate program. Some of our builders are getting a great amount of value out of that and bringing some extra money on the table. We also offer data transfer with Mark Systems and Cova. So this helps makes the rebate program even more efficient for you. So if you're using Cova or Mark Systems, you want to make sure to get in touch with our builder representatives at Builder Partnerships to help you with that. We do offer surveys to help you with analyzing your relationship with your trades and your employees to see how they perceive you and get valuable feedback to make adjustments in your organization to be a better builder and builder of choice, which as Ed's passion. So if you need more information on that, let us know. And then of course our builder groups, which is a great opportunity to create a support group in your industry and work with others to help solve problems and get ideas from other builders that are similar to your company. And then here's a list of our various manufacturers. You might want to take a quick peek and see which manufacturers you're working with. We offer great rebates with all of these guys. We've got a great relationship with them. So you want to make sure that if you are working with them and not taking advantage of the rebates, that you get in touch with us to help you get that money back into your organization instead of leaving it on the table. Here are our upcoming HBU classes. We are currently doing a negotiating class that started yesterday. So we're excited about that one. But coming up in October, we have production management, transforming managers into top performing leaders, and then introduction to a home building 101, how a successful home building business operates. And those will start the first week of October. You can register for that at builderpartnerships.com/events and get more details on that. And then webinar Wednesday next week, we have Guild Quality presenting Thriving in the Reputation Economy. This will, they do surveys as well. So this is a great way for you to learn a little bit more about what Guild Quality does and how you can use that to help you improve your business. And again, you can get more information from builderpartnerships.com/events. Thank you so much for coming. It doesn't look like we have any questions today. If you do have, go ahead.
I got a question for Ross.
Yep.
And it actually has to do with business, not cars, nothing else. On the scripts, what are some of the critical scripts that a keeper should have in their pocket? And how do I write a script? I mean, a lot of times I go and I talk to a salesperson and it's obvious that the builder has written the script and they look like a parrot when they start talking with the script, and you know exactly that they're just being a parrot.
Well, Chuck, first of all, that's an entire webinar or something in itself, because it's a process, and I know how you believe in process, and there's a process to writing a script. But to kind of flesh it out a little bit, a script is something that attaches to a particular issue. So I don't know what issues are in a given community, but some of the examples might be, well, first of all, everybody's needs to have a script for somebody that's stalling. If you get somebody, well, I want to think it over, I want to talk to my accountant or something. You need a script to deal with that, because that's an issue in every sales center. Or a script that has to do with not getting exactly what they want, that the builder simply doesn't offer it, but you're getting close on almost everything that's key to them, but you haven't got everything, and you've got to have a script prepared for that. And then you've got scripts that are specific to the community, like maybe your community has a microwave tower that you can see from the community and everybody sees it. You can't screen it, so you better have a script to address it, because you know the issue is going to come up. Or a highway, or I mean, who knows what the things are. But I can tell you that my experience is that in any given sales situation, any center, there are not more than about a dozen things that keep coming back up over and over and over again. And those are the ones you prepare for. And your comment about sounding like a parrot with the builder's prepared script is exactly right. If you don't write it yourself and put it in your own words with your own emotion, and you own it, it is unnatural, and nobody likes doing those. I never liked doing it. I had to learn. When I started in the insurance business way back when, they had a prepared script that the insurance company had written for us, and the language that we did, the salesperson's language, was in red, and the part that the customer was supposed to say was in black. And we used to laugh and say, well, we know the red letter language, they just don't know the black letter language. So, I mean, it just doesn't work. But the ones that you create yourself do work, and they work very well. And they keep you from rambling on, talking too much, or saying things. And I can't even, thinking back, I can't even tell you the number of times where somebody said, if they'd have just stopped, there's a guy in the White House I'd like to script. If you just stop and stop talking, you don't shoot yourself in the foot. There's an old saying that Samson slew 10,000 Philistines with the jawbone of an ass, and many a salesman killed the same way. And we talk too much.
Yep.
We got to just get our words out, get our point made, and stop and listen.
And for some of you, if you feel like you're losing control of your customer, and you tend to have the same situation where it tends to stall out. Maybe at that point you need to sit down and write a
That's the
script
place
so
to
that
start.
yeah,
That's the perfect
so
place.
so you know how to continue the conversation.
Yep.
So I think it's very important. Most people are afraid of them. They don't feel comfortable writing them. But I've got one builder, their sales manager makes every salesperson sit down and say, where are your trouble points? And they go through the table of the salespeople and they all bring up their trouble points. And then she makes those salespeople write out their own script. But they do it as a team. It's really interesting. They do it as a team, and they are highly successful. Right now, they're at 175% of budget on sales for this last month. And that's what the scripts are doing for them. Highly qualified keepers all the way through the organization. Now, any other questions for Ross?
Well, I appreciate everybody being here today and listening to me ramble on, but I had a script and I still talk too long.
It was great, Ross. It was fantastic, and we really appreciate you coming out of retirement and joining us, and working on the presentation with us. Ross is also going to be involved. I think we're talking to him about doing a couple of classes for the Home Builder University. And by the way, that's going to set up to where you get a certificate as a master's of home building management, as if you take a few of the classes. So that's coming down the pike. We're gradually putting all that together. So stay in contact with us and let us know what you think about the webinars and about the educational
Oh,
programs.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is it recorded? I jumped on late. Yes, it is recorded. And you can go to, as soon as the link is available, it takes about an hour to an hour and a half. So the link will be up this afternoon. Go to builderpartnerships.com/events and you can scroll down to this particular webinar and watch the recording this afternoon. It takes about an hour to an hour and a half for us to get that taken care of.
But we are recording all the webinars, right?
Yep. You can see
So
all
there's a whole library of webinars that we've done.
Yep. They're all there. Excellent. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Ross. I really appreciate it. You did a great job for us today. Great information. I'm sure your email will be included in the follow-up email that goes out tomorrow with the thank you for everybody who attended, along with the people who weren't able to attend today. They'll get a link to the webinar, and you may be getting some questions in your email box. So keep your emails, keep an eye on your emails, Ross, because I think people will, after they digest everything that you presented today, they'll be like, I need to ask a few questions. So
I'll be happy to help.
Well, thank you, everybody. Have a great Wednesday. We look forward to seeing you next week on Webinar Wednesday. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Ross. Thank you, everybody, for being here.